Hello and welcome to the AV Forum's Movies Podcast, an extra special movies podcast. We're streaming live on the 21st of March. And joining me in this edition, we have the movies team. So we got Simon. Hi, Simon.
Good evening, Phil. Hello, everyone. How are we doing this evening?
We also have Kaz. Good evening.
Hey.
Kaz. Tom's here.
Hi.
And joining us from the hardware team, but he knows a bit about movies, is Steve. Hello, Steve.
Evening all.
Right, so we're here to talk about Coming to America, which no, we're not. I'm joking. We did that last time. There was a small movie released last week on Sky, of all places, in the UK, although it was HBO Max in the US. Right, so I guess we need to just deep dive straight into it. It's we've only got an hour tonight to talk about it. There will be some mild spoilers, so just be aware of that. We'll do our best not to give too much away, but let's face it, people, this movie's been out for a while. Yes, it is.
If you haven't seen it now, tough titty.
Yeah, so you've had your chance to see at least one version of it. If you haven't seen the new version, then yeah, it's got some extra bits and pieces, but it's not like it's a completely different
essentially movie. The same plot as the film that came out in 2017.
So, yeah, there's some controversy around it, obviously. We'll get into that. We'll also get into the fact that it's an unusual aspect ratio. We'll get into that as well and discuss that. We've run a couple of polls today just to get your feelings out there to what you thought. Unsurprisingly, most people hated it, but we'll get there. Creators' intent and all that. We'll get to that point as well. But before we do, there are some competitions. So we didn't run the competitions or the full podcast competitions in the last podcast, but Kaz, tell us what we can win if we're lucky.
You can win a 2 terabyte Humax or a 4K Freeview Play recorder. You can win HBO's The Undoing Blu-ray, patron exclusive that is. Also patron exclusive is Yellowstone Season 2 Blu-ray. Criterion's March titles on Blu-ray, another patron exclusive. And for us mere mortals, The Craft Legacy and They Came From Beyond Space on Blu-ray. Head over to avforums.com/competitions to enter. All competitions open to eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Kaz. Right, we'll be back in a sec. We're cutting out most of the usual stuff we do in the podcast because we need to get straight into things. So we'll be back in a second with our feature presentation.
If you enjoy the podcast on YouTube, then please like and subscribe. If you're listening to the audio version, then please leave us a rating on your podcast app. We invite you to email questions and feedback to podcast@avforums.com and join in with this episode's discussion thread in the podcasts forum at AV Forums.
Of course, we're talking about Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League. I forgot, we didn't even mention what if you've read the title, you know what the podcast's about. But anyway, that's what we're talking about this evening. So I guess what we'll do straight away is just go round, very quickly, round robin with everybody, just to get initial thoughts before we deep dive into it. So we've had Kaz's review, but Kaz, has your opinion changed at all? I take it you've watched it again since?
Yes, and I need to probably watch the whole saga. I mean, that speaks a lot for me because I was done with DC. I was done with it from Batman versus Superman, from the last Justice League, from Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 84. I mean, come on, I was totally done with DC. I don't think I thought there was any way that a new cut of Justice League was going to change my mind. They might as well have told me they were just showing Whedon's cut in black and white. And that's what I kind of expected. And so I was very, very pleasantly surprised to find that it is, for me, a completely different version. Yes, the same kind of DNA and the same basics plot, but much expanded, better characterizations, more classically stylized in Snyder's vision, which suits his films, for good or bad. Nailed it. And the ending for me, not the epilogue, because I know that was a bit tacked on, but the ending for me, it just adds so much more momentum and impact than Whedon's, rescue some Russian people in a hut somewhere kind of version. So I can't actually believe. I mean, I had a real problem convincing people because I obviously saw it early. A real problem convincing people that this was so different. Yes, I know it's the same basic story, but maybe that's just how you can see two different distinct artists can bring a very different vision to it, because this is Snyder's vision, for good or bad, and it's a very different animal, and I really enjoyed it.
Good stuff. Nice to see that Stu's made an effort with the graphics tonight. Cool. If everybody's noticed that, is very good. Obviously spent some time this afternoon on that one. Well done. I like the in association with Woolworths. Excellent.
Are we actually being sponsored by Woolworths?
Woolworths don't exist anymore, Steve. Haven't done for a number of years.
Yeah, they sell sweets still, don't they? Don't they sell sweets?
No,
all I ever bought in a Woolworths was a pick and mix.
No, yeah, I don't think in the current climate you want a pick and mix, do you? Right. Moving on to Simon. Simon, what did you think initially?
So I was very surprised. I liked it, actually. I liked it a lot better than what it was, than Whedon's cut. There was a lot more substance, an awful lot more substance. And I'm not talking about the length of the piece. I'm thinking that everything that was involved in it. It had, the length meant it had time to breathe. The characters had time to breathe. And to sum it up before we start going into, because this is the very, very quick intro bit, I was pleasantly surprised. I need to watch it again, which in itself says quite a lot about it, because I never wanted to watch Whedon's one again, ever. But this one I want to watch again because there was so much going on. And exactly what Kaz says, the ending was really quite dramatic. There was feeling there, whereas previously there was none. So yes, I enjoyed it.
Good. Tom?
Yeah, Simon took the words right out of my mouth, really. I didn't expect to get to the end of it saying I would watch that again. And I would definitely watch that again. On balance, I liked more of it than I didn't like. I still had some fairly fundamental issues with it, but ultimately my problems with it come down to my problems with a Zack Snyder movie in general. It was all him, and it was something to be admired in that respect, I thought. And it got to the end of the 4 hours, and I thought, yeah, I'd stick that on again. I'd watch that again with someone else. It was very surprisingly enjoyable. And like Kaz, I would never have imagined saying that about this movie. I just couldn't imagine it being anywhere near watchable, and it totally is. It's an okay movie. I don't love it, but I think he did a stand-up job at rescuing what was an enormous cinematic travesty previously.
Okay, Steve?
I do love it. I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's the Citizen Kane of comic book movies. I can't believe I sat there and scene after scene, I kept thinking, why did they cut this out? What were they thinking? Yeah. How could they possibly think that? I mean, no wonder Ray Fisher was pissed off. Yep. I mean, they gutted his part and also turned Ezra Miller's character into a joke, where he's got some really, really important things to do in this version. It was just, it was the only comparison I've got is watching Richard Donner's version of Superman 2, which he didn't have an opportunity to actually complete. But it was the same kind of thing where you're thinking, why did they not use? Obviously, they didn't use the footage with Marlon Brando because they didn't want to pay him. But the point is, it's essentially the same plot, but it's a completely different movie. Yeah. And even though it's 4 hours long, and I've seen it twice now, once in 1.78:1 and once in 4:3, and it rattles by. It doesn't feel long, and you need that time because basically you have to introduce two characters completely, which is Cyborg and the Flash. They haven't had their own films, and so, and Aquaman as well. Actually, come think about it. So you needed that extra time to develop the characters, and I just couldn't believe some of that stuff. That most of the stuff wasn't used, and they thought that Joss Whedon's jokey rubbish and Russian family and all that nonsense was in some way better. I loved it, but I also was gobsmacked at how thick and stupid studio executives can be. Actually, I mean,
well, they wanted Avengers, didn't they?
They wanted Avengers. They wanted it to be 2 hours long.
They got scared off the back of the reception of Batman versus Superman, essentially, and said we can't have that again, and made a massive
Ironically,
error.
if they had stuck their guns, they'd have been okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
and obviously the film that came out wouldn't have been 4 hours long, but you can see places where they could have tightened it. I mean, he's basically gone for it on this one because he doesn't have any restrictions at all. But he could probably tighten it down to a 3-hour movie.
He's probably got an extra hour of that singing at the beach for Aquaman. Easily.
well, you know that I'm basically not a huge comic book fan. In fact, I haven't read any comic books. I'm not that type of person. It's not really my genre. However, I have slowly over the years gotten into it through the Marvel universe because you can't avoid it. Basically, I used to have a Limitless card, and I had to use it, so that's how it started, basically. And I went to see Justice League at the cinema, and it was the worst 2.5 hours I'd ever spent in the cinema. It was absolute drivel. I mean, the only reason I didn't get up and walk out was because I couldn't be arsed to get up and walk out. And it was a nice air-conditioned cinema at the time. So I never wanted to see it again. I had no intentions of ever seeing it again. Even this version, I had my doubts, and I thought 4 hours, there's no way I'm going to sit for 4 hours, especially in 4:3, because I can't watch it on the projector. So I'm going to have to sit in the living room, and the fate worse than death, sitting on my couch, because after about half an hour, I'm gone. I'm asleep. Doesn't matter what's on the TV. I managed to sit through 4 hours of this. I would have rated the original cut, the theatrical version, a 2. I'd give this one 6.5, 7. Far better movie. In fact, what you say, Steve, is a completely different movie, even though it's the same plot, same characters, a lot of the same footage.
About an hour of the footage is the same.
Yeah. Just the way it's been put together.
Well,
and
it's not just
so
that, Phil, is it? The footage might be the same footage, but the way they color timed
it's the way, and it's the way
they changed the
put together.
contrast.
Yeah.
Completely changed the nature of the footage that they did use to try and make it into sort of poppy, brightly colored, Marvel-esque.
Yeah.
It's funny,
which it was never intended to be.
Yeah, and in some scenes, it's literally day for night. Like, I hadn't realized I was watching some of the action scenes towards the end of Snyder's cut. You think, oh, this is the time of day it's supposed to be happening. Now I get it.
Yeah. Well, he lightened the fight with Superman was lightened in the Whedon version. And it always looks strange because you're thinking, why are all the lights on in the buildings if it's daytime? But of course, it wasn't. It was meant to be early morning, sort of dawn, essentially. And it's much more evident in the Snyder version. Plus, also, they carefully lay out the reason why Lois Lane would be there rather than having it just suddenly magically appear, thanks to Alfred.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, going through it, all of us, we've all enjoyed it. We all thought it was an improvement. So, that's a plus point. I'm not going to say I loved it. I'm kind of like Tom. I have my issues with it. So let's go into the first issue I had with it, which wasn't plot or characters or anything else, which we can get into in a little bit. It was the use of overcranking.
Overcranking?
Over slow motion.
Ramping.
Yeah. Every opportunity he had to slow the frame down so he could walk in a certain way or stick the chest out, in a heroically in slow motion. It was like watching a music video at times. It was
he started his career.
Director's cut.
Exactly.
The prime example of that, Phil, and I'm totally with you on this one, is in the opening. I think it's just in the opening 20 minutes or so. Everybody is introduced to slow-mo, and everything is given like Olympic importance. Like everything is like lightning crashing down. Everything's turned all the way up to 11, to the point where even Lois Lane putting down a coffee cup
slow-mo.
It's like,
I loved it.
So do I.
I'm not saying I hate it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I hate it. I just thought after the 15th or 20th time of doing it, it was just like, yeah, okay, I get this now.
There's a Garth Marenghi sketch where they talk about that. They say basically everything was up for slow-mo. And yeah, you could get a 2-hour movie out of this by putting it at normal speed. But I loved Watchmen, and he does that a lot in Watchmen, and it was just total Snyder. I loved
There
it.
is one slight disadvantage to his overuse of slow-mo, which is it kind of negates the whole flash sequences, because again, those are in slow motion, for a different reason.
Yeah,
but I think some of his musical choices were a little bit strange. Some of the every character got an introduction with a song.
with Nick Cave. Yeah.
But I think some of it works. I mean, the scene where Aquaman walks out onto the pier with the waves crashing around him in slow motion, it tells you the power of the ocean and the power of Aquaman. I mean, good storytelling. It's good filmmaking as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I really love that.
I think it's funny. I remember seeing that scene a long time ago in a comic book presents. No, in a comic book presents on Channel 4 years and years ago. Robbie Coltrane walked out with a waves coming over him. Like that.
Yeah, you're right. It's in Supergrass.
There you go.
Yeah, to the strains of Two Tribes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well spotted, Simon.
Yes.
So you're saying Zack Snyder ripped off the comic strip presents?
It looks like it.
Probably use the same aspect ratio as well.
Yeah. It was
1.66 to 1, I believe, because it was a theatrical release.
Well, you mentioned aspect ratio, so that's a big elephant in the room at the minute. It's one that's created the most amount of conversation. So let's hit that one before we get more into the movie and development and production and so on. So I'm going to start off by saying, because I'm usually quite vocal on these things, that director's intent, creator's intent, we should honour that and respect that. And absolutely, I'm not going to have a go at the guy for his choice of wanting to do it in 4:3. But the unfortunate thing here is that it should have been an IMAX release. Unfortunately, we're in the middle of a pandemic. That's not going to happen. Certainly not at the minute. It might happen later in the year if enough people ask for it and the studios feel it's worth it. But that's where it would have made an impact. It would have made a huge impact on a big screen. Because my problem with 4:3 on a TV and even on a projector is that when you're talking about ratios, 1:33 to 1, 1:66 to 1, 1:78 to 1, 1:85 to 1, 2:35 to 1, the one's always the same. The one is the height. And height's always the same. If you're going to change with height, what you need to have is a screen that fills the width of the room that you're in, which is an IMAX theater. It takes up your periphery. If you put your fingers like this, and everybody does it, and move them back as far as you can still see your fingers pretty far back, because evolutionary, that's how our eyes work. There wasn't any risks from the sky when we were hunter-gatherers. The risks were, saber-toothed tigers and stuff creeping up on behind you. So our vision is based on landscape, basically.
Sorry, I've got this mental image of a saber-toothed tiger sneaking up on me now.
And if you put your fingers like this, you soon disappear, because that's how your vision works. Your vision works on a landscape. So when you're talking about IMAX, when you have the width taking up the full room in an IMAX theater, and then you add the extra height, that's where you get immersion. That's where it becomes immersive. That's where it becomes worthwhile shooting, above and below, normally where you would have it scoped, scope ratioed. Now, when it does work in a home releases where they do keep the width the same, so some of the films in 240 to 1, and then suddenly it'll open up top and bottom with the IMAX scene. So I'm thinking like some of the Mission Impossibles and stuff like that, where
Nolan stuff,
where he does that, he opens it up, and it has an effect for home viewing, because the vast majority of home viewers are watching on a TV, 16:9 frame TV, and because of that, that then has an impact. It makes it more immersive, having seen some of the scenes in 240 and then opening it up. My problem with this was that even on the projector, where I could keep it 4:3 and get a little bit more out of the image and so on, I was missing the immersion, the immersiveness of that, because of the width issues, and because it's restricted width-wise, it plays with your mind, because we're supposed to see in landscape. And that's where it has an issue with me, because it wasn't, say, the same width. I think if it was the same width and then playing with the extra space up and above, it would have had more impact. Now, that's just my opinion. He's released it 4:3. We respect that. But we have run some polls. We certainly did a poll on YouTube today, just asking people who had watched it, did they like the 4:3? Did it add anything to it, or was it distracting? And the vast majority, I think it was 75%, have said that they found it distracting and so on. And I think they find it distracting because it's not natural way that we view movies. And again, it comes down to the width issue. So if we were able to have a display device, and people who have a constant area home cinema setup are probably the only people that get away with this. Now, constant areas where they don't take height into so you have a much bigger screen and you have four-way masking, which moves so you can have any aspect ratio. Like Stu used to have an automatic screen like that in his home cinema, where he could have any aspect ratio you like, and where 4:3 would have been an advantage in his system because he would have been able to have it larger. So I just feel, yes, it was his decision. You got to respect that, but I don't think it worked for a home release. I think
Very
maybe
surprised that HBO Max agreed to it, given that TVs are 1.78 to 1. You'd have thought they said, look, come on, Zach, we're giving you carte blanche here, but at least give us the aspect ratio that's going to fill up the TV screen.
I wonder whether a part of that though was because they wanted to distance themselves from Whedon's version, because I think it gives it a very distinctive look.
absolutely.
It's much more scale to it. There's a genuine height to the image, and Whedon's version looks like it's been improperly framed. It's not even that it's just different color. It just looks like it's been zoomed in when you compare it directly to Snyder's. So I do agree with this idea of kind of losing aspect ratio a little bit, and I can see Phil's point about it being wider, but I lost track of it in a few minutes, and I'm pretty sure that the actual amount of screen size filled, so it doesn't address Phil's point, but the actual amount of screen size filled is pretty comparable to 2.4. So you're just getting it a different way. So you're still getting
2.4 technically is a little bit more, but
tiny bit more, but still comparable.
The thing is, the problem is, Kaz, I get the argument, the extras there.
Yes,
it's just it doesn't have the impact. It doesn't have that.
No, I understand that. I found it more immersive from a scale point of view. How
far away were you sitting from the TV?
Yeah, I felt like everything had a feel of height to it that just wasn't there before.
It lacked the width.
Yeah, but I think,
but I don't know whether
as Phil's pointed out, our eyes work on a lateral plane.
But I didn't notice. I'm just saying I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
saying.
would.
I think if you've got an OLED and you sit in a black room, then you get around the issue that your eyes are. I think if you watch it where you can see the edge of the screen, it's unnatural.
I watched it twice with the edge of the screen. I mean, it's, as I say, it's just for me. But I found seeing the scenes with that kind of scale to them, it's a bit Pacific Rim-y, I guess, because I'm sure I saw Pacific Rim in IMAX. And I agree, you can't replicate that at home, but maybe we're just not used to it.
When you say you saw it in IMAX, were you in an IMAX cinema that ran 70mm IMAX, or were you in an IMAX which just used a 4K projector?
No, I do not remember. I think
you can tell by the shape of the screen.
Back in the day, I used to go to BFI only because it's actually
that would
the
have been
closest to
genuinely
me.
IMAX.
Yeah, so when I saw things like I think I saw Revolutions maybe there on repeat, and I'm sure I saw Dark of the Moon, for my sins.
I tell you what my problem is.
But I just found that the marketing of this is wrong. They should have said this is the IMAX cut, because I bet you anything people would die for full scale 1.43 version IMAX versions of things like Ghost Protocol, of the Nolan movies.
If you can see it in an IMAX screen, and again, the IMAX screen is so big that it gets rid of the periphery issue, and then it's all about the height.
I think sell 4K discs by the dozen. They would just they would go out the door if they re-release them. We'll see what Batman versus Superman.
I wouldn't be buying them.
But I think
I think
Kaz. Sorry, Kaz. Sorry to interrupt. But I think you've got a point. I think there's something to be said for saying like the director wanted this to be seen, like however it comes across. I mean, I can't speak for the immersion factor of Justice League, but I appreciated that what I was being shown was what the film wanted to show me. It was so clearly framed to be shown in that way, and I don't think it's a lot of it couldn't have worked. There would be moments of it where you would be missing.
Yeah,
that's not
vital
really true, Tom. I
detail.
watched it both ways, and the majority of the time, 99% of the time, the framing looks great in 1.78 to 1. There is literally only one scene where that doesn't
And
apply, and that's when he's talking to Dessard.
There's somebody who worked on the film actually replied that it was shot safe for.
Well, no, it was shot on Super 35. First of all, it was never shot on IMAX for film stock. So this whole IMAX thing's cobblers. I mean, it was shot on Super 35, which is 35mm film, but without any optical tracks or sound tracks. So it's got a little bit more surface area. And it was developed so people could then crop it for scope ratio without using anamorphic lenses. And when they blow it up, it's got finer grain, so it doesn't look grainy. That's what Super 35 was developed for. So he used Super 35. He shot it on Super 35 at 1.33 to 1. Now, first of all, 1.33 to 1 is no aspect ratio. 1.37 is Academy ratio. 1.43 to 1 is the IMAX ratio for film stock using 70mm IMAX film stock. So the IMAX scenes in Batman vs. Superman were shot on 70mm IMAX film stock. If you go to a Limax, that's 1.9 to 1. When he was shooting this, he knew it was going to go for a theatrical release at the time. So he must have been framing for 1.85 to 1. There's no other way of doing it. He framed it for 1.85 to 1. And when he obviously thought of it, I can expand it out a little bit for IMAX presentations and this kind of thing later. So when I watched it in 1.78 to 1, the framing was almost perfectly framed with one notable exception, which was the Dessard scene where he's a little bit higher than the frame, the 1.78 to 1.
So for that, Steve, surely when you're the director, you have the ability to frame it on the fly. So
you could change the framing, yes. You could move the framing up,
but you can't. So, for example,
I know I can't. But what I'm saying is, if you look at each shot, you think, "Oh, that looks nicely framed." Because generally, it's easier just to do framing like this between, within the.
But there was somebody in the thread that actually said that they framed it safe. It was.
He did say frame it, but what I'm saying is you can frame the shot so that. He also said in the thread that you're going to lose it if you're not framing at the top. Do you see? It's not framing in the middle.
It depends on where they put the safe.
Yeah, exactly.
If they framed it,
so that's not something that we can do at home. So if you cut in the middle, you lose like the top half of Darkseid's head or of.
But what I'm saying, Kaz, is that at no point when I was watching the film did I think that doesn't look correctly framed, or I'm missing information, or I can't see the top of someone's head, with the exception of the Dessard scene.
Sure.
When he's talking to Dessard.
But I put screenshots in the review where you would lose the top of his head.
Who? Darkseid?
Darkseid and Steppenwolf, because they're framed so that the top of his head is at the top of the frame.
I suspect those scenes, because they're entirely CG, would part of the effects that were finished now. Yeah. So he's obviously decided, well, I'm going to go the full frame then. But he wouldn't have done that for a theatrical release.
That's the argument, isn't it? Really, it's that like he has been given carte blanche to do what he wants to do, and he's sort of decided this is the field of view that I want to present to the audience, which is, I don't know, like the idea that if you are watching on a TV, you are not filling the landscape view, but you're also, I see what you're saying, Phil, but you're at home, you're not losing out on this because it still is appearing on your TV. You are still able to see it. So all it's doing really is like, it looks like it's just cutting out the sides that you'd be used to seeing. And I don't know. I just in terms of a viewing experience.
But there's nothing at the sides, Tom.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I know there's nothing at the sides, but I'm saying that like it didn't feel like there was something missing there. It felt like what you were getting was a complete picture.
Well, like I said right at the start, I've got no issues with it. It's the director's intent. It's up to him. I found it unusual
Yeah.
for a
sure.
home release, they would go with it. Because if you look at the polls that we've run, if you read the threads, if you not just on AV forums, you go and have a quick search around the internet, people don't like it. They don't
Oh,
like the fact. So,
They complained to Sky, didn't they? Hundreds.
well, that's why Sky has to say presented in 4:3 format. So,
Yeah.
we
They should have
had,
just called it IMAX and presented it in 1.43. I bet they would have got no complaints.
well,
Yeah, but Kaz, do you know how many actual IMAX cinemas there are in this country that project in
Sure,
1.43 to
I'm
1?
not
That's
disputing
2,
that.
I think.
I'm just saying that market it the right way, and
This is
people don't
dumb.
do this. They market it as 4:3, and people think that it's some kind of mistake. They
Yeah.
market it as full IMAX, and people be like, "Oh, this is great. This is what IMAX looks like."
well, like I say, I'd love to see it in IMAX because you can
Yes.
see.
Oh
that,
yeah, I'd love to see it in an
I'd like
IMAX
to see that.
screen.
Yeah,
That would
on
be
an IMAX
amazing.
screen, because you lose that width issue, because the width is the full width of the
It's the full
auditorium.
width of the
You've
cinema,
then
yeah.
got the extra height.
Yeah.
Unlike watching it at home where your eye is fooled. And that's why people dislike it. So I'm not saying I disliked it. I found a way around it, and Steve found a way around it as well. And even watching in the cinema room, it was still I was still getting an 85-inch image. So it wasn't like I was losing in terms of size, you know what I mean? And watching in the dark, well, all you see is the image anyway. And if you've got a big screen TV, 65-inch or above, I mean, I've got a 65-inch in the living room that I watched it on. Sit a little bit closer, switch the lights off. It's there's ways and means around it. The only person we haven't heard is Simon. So Simon, what are
Yeah,
your thoughts?
personally, I wasn't bothered in the slightest. I watch loads of 4:3 stuff. I was talking about the Doctor Who DVD last week. That was projected as it was presented in, TV aspect ratio, 1.3. So yeah, there we go. I was fine with that. It's got black bars at the side. Thunderbirds, blackbirds at the side. Everyone's moaning, oh, it's been zoomed in, right?
Isn't that
it's supposed to
historic,
be.
Simon?
So yes, it is. But there's no. This is how it's supposed to be seen. It looked fine to me. It was fine. Black bars to the side, black bars to the top. To the side doesn't matter to me one little bit. I found it just as immersive. It was fine. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Didn't-
no, that's good. It's
didn't
good
bother
that
me
you
at all.
enjoyed it and so on. And I think everybody here got around it, so it wasn't an issue really. I was just surprised given the backlash, but maybe that's why they did it. That could be another reason. Let's create some discussion around this. So yeah, why not do it in
Internet chatter.
release it in 4:3 full frame and see what the backlash is? It's got people talking. It's got us doing a podcast, so
Yeah.
you can't
Well,
say it's
it's-
bad marketing.
That's why
It's
they
gonna
did it.
sell his IMAX Batman versus Superman, which I'm very.
Do you know how much it is for an actual official IMAX cinema at home?
More than $1,000.
I've been in one,
Million?
just under $1 million, Steve.
No way.
Yeah, just under $1 million, and that's for the small one. That's not for a big one.
Okay.
The Batman vs Superman, the new Blu-ray that's coming out with the IMAX sequences presented in the IMAX ratio, it's going to look really bizarre because you're going to be going from scope to suddenly going to 4:3, back to scope to 4:3. So yeah, I don't think that's going to catch on.
Which one's that? Sorry, Steve, I missed
That's
that.
the
Batman versus
Batman versus
Superman.
Superman.
Yeah,
I
but-
He's
think
actually
but
presenting, not doing the Nolan thing of opening it out at the top and bottom, but actually going from
He's doing-
2.35 to
yeah.
1 to 1.43 to 1.
I think I'm going to love it. I think it's going to sit better with this. And I never thought I'd have a reason to go back and watch that film again.
Oh,
And
Batman vs Superman.
after this, I think maybe it's the other way around though, Steve. I liked it, and then I saw Justice League, and then I was like, I'm done with these guys.
I rewatched Justice League Whedon version on Thursday night, and I can safely say that I shall never ever watch it again.
Yeah,
Not good.
it's
what
funny
I'm
you should say that. I watched Avengers Assemble, and I always loved that. I mean, the first time I saw that in the cinema, I thought it was tremendous getting the group together. But I found it, and I am a bit tainted by all the politics, but I found it a bit clunky sometimes, and I wonder what it would stand up, how it would stand up alongside Zack Snyder's Justice League if we were back at the time of Avengers Assemble. And there's a lot of Whedonism in there. There's a lot of, underdeveloped characters and people doing random side projects on the side. I mean, there's leagues of difference between Whedon's Avengers and, when later on when we got the Russos. So I don't know whether part of it
Would
is-
it have been as good had we not had the 5 or 6 films before it, or the 3 or 4 films before it.
What, Avengers?
Yeah.
No.
No, I don't think it would.
Don't think it
As
would
a
work.
standalone film, it's okay.
Yeah.
As a
The
standalone film,
underlying
this
problem-
Snyder's cut here is a better film in that regard, because
Yes.
it's longer for a start, so you've got much more time to get into the characters, because presumably you don't know the characters, and that's where I felt it worked. It had that epic feel to it.
Yes.
I mean, I've got to say, when I saw it at the cinema, I had no idea who Cyborg was, and I still had no idea at the end of it, and I had no idea who this Flash was either.
You know,
At the
nor
end of
did
it,
you
it was like,
care.
who are these people?
Yeah.
In this cut, they spend the right amount of time on the backstory.
Yeah.
I feel that when and they've got some genuinely important lines and points to make in the story, which were completely thrown away in the original theatrical cut. So
one of the most emotional scenes in the entire film is when Cyborg watches that waitress and then gives her the money.
Yes. Yeah, it's
I started to cry. I thought this is a lovely little sequence.
Al-
We should never would have made it into theatrical cut. I don't think,
no.
but-
Also the bit with his dad.
Well, the whole relationship with his father, which is not mentioned at all.
In the other
Whedon's-
one, yeah.
In fact, in Whedon's version, they cut out any character of color seems to be decimated in that version of the film for some
But they
reason.
did.
Maybe it's
They
just
did have
coincidence, but-
they did have Flash land on Wonder Woman's breast. So there
Yeah.
was,
Oh, yeah. And obviously, and there's also that joke about you're the thirstiest reporter you'd ever known, which is a Whedon line, because he rewrote and refilmed the sequence where Lois meets Martha Kent, and you think the first time they shot it was great, really good scene. Why did you change it? None of it. I mean, normally when directors do this, it's so they can get credit. You know, you need to shoot at least 50% of the movie in order to get directorial credit, which is what Richard Lester did to Superman 2. But here, Whedon didn't take directorial credit, but still managed to ruin the film. It's like, why did you bother?
But he did.
I
he
know
did
you were
shoot,
under
like,
orders from
loads.
Warner's. 40%.
It was very, very complex, wasn't it? I mean, if you look into it, it was very, very complex. Whedon was brought in because Snyder left because of the tragedy that he suffered. But
That's
not
not
only
what Snyder
that,
says, actually. That's not what Snyder says, Simon. Snyder says that he was pushed out and then Whedon was brought in.
well, yeah, because AT&T were buying Warner or something. There was a lot of backhanded deals going on, and Warner wanted to rush out a film quickly because they thought they were going to lose the franchise. They thought they were going to lose the movie franchise.
The reason they wanted it in the cinemas by November was because the producers and the executives would get their bonuses off the back of it.
There you go. That's it. Yeah. That's what it was.
They
So
did
it's
it, yeah.
rushed through. Yeah. So it's all about the money at the back door. That's what it was all about. And well, they shot themselves in the foot, didn't they? I nearly swore then. Cool, blimey. That was close, wasn't it?
I just wanted to also mention when we're talking about the technical side of things, I think we've sorted the aspect ratio. We've done that. We've sorted it. HDR, I still can't get HDR on Sky. I've got Sky Q. I mean, it took most of the day for the 4K version to turn up. It wasn't till late afternoon till the 4K version turned up on Thursday. Still not shown as HDR. So I don't know if anybody watching at the minute, maybe in the chat window, if you've got Sky Q and you've managed to see it in HDR, you can let us know. But certainly for me, it hasn't turned up on HDR as yet. So
I had to watch it in stereo on Now TV.
Oh, I watched it in Atmos.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it twice, but I haven't really seen it yet because I haven't seen it in HDR or with Atmos. So.
I think we really need to have a theatrical release for this. I think they need to
That's
do
what
it.
they're talking about.
Even if it's a limited IMAX run, I'd be up for that.
He's talking about 3-day extravaganza where he shows Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman director's cut, and then the Justice League over a long weekend, basically. I don't think that would be tremendous.
Do you think they're going to let him do some more films? I mean, I really hope they do.
Oh, you know, it's such a thing, isn't it? But it's so
complete the Snyderverse. Complete the Snyderverse.
But you see, he goes, you know, I know this isn't canon. And in the background, he's got like Patty Jenkins, he's got James Wan going, he's got Jason Momoa going, we made films which were in line with Snyder, not with Whedon. And then you've got Snyder going, well, I had them all written, but we're never going to make them now. And then you got Warner Brothers going, the bell has rung. You know, the bell has been rung, which means something, obviously. And then you got Snyder going, well, I do have them written if we, you know, I'd be good to go if anyone were to approach me. It feels like all the boxes are being ticked and they know more than they're actually saying. You know, it's I really hope they go through with it. It's a hell of an ending to leave us on, because you can see everything has been laid there for a proper run at Darkseid and at kind of a nightmare apocalypse.
Having said that, the nightmare apocalypse that we are given a glimpse of,
is a bit budget, yeah.
I don't think I was meant to laugh at it. let's say that, but I did. I laughed quite a lot. I thought it was awful. Like, if that's probably my biggest issue with the movie as a whole, is everything that it sets up for a potential sequel, I thought was absolutely outrageously stupid. So I would still be hesitant to see a Justice League sequel if those are setting the tone for what it's going to be like.
I don't think the sequel would be that. I think that's just the backstory that would play out, that it's the future they're trying to avoid. I don't think we'd ever get a sequel that was set in that land for the entirety. That's just the future, that the dark Superman future that everyone's trying to avoid, that we saw already in Batman vs Superman, that Flash already gave glimpses of, and that is obviously all tied into Lois. I mean, it was a clunky scene, a reshoot, and I was very surprised to hear that Affleck came back to reshoot it, because I was pretty sure he hung up the cape a long time ago.
No,
but it was shot.
He's in the Flash movie.
He is, yeah, he is. I heard that as well. Yeah,
which sounds like it's a direct continuation of what's been going on.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what was really funny. What was really funny is that they obviously made some decisions after this film had been shot about Aquaman, because in this, every time anyone wants to talk, they have to create an air bubble.
Yeah.
Obviously thought, oh, bollocks of that. Just have them talk underwater.
But, the air bubble works. I don't know why.
Well, yeah, but it would have been a pain in the arse if they had to do that every time they wanted to have a conversation in Aquaman, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And also, why is Amber Heard got an English accent?
Oh, I found her accent, really awful. I mean,
they clearly thought better of that too, and thought, yeah, do your normal accent, love, it'd be all right.
Yeah.
No one's going to care.
Although I have to say, for as much as I hated Jared Leto in Suicide Squad, I thought his little back and forth with Batman was okay.
The reach around joke was quite funny.
Yeah, and Batman's one F-bomb I thought was nicely placed in that.
I thought Cold Water had been poured on any direct sequel to Justice League.
Well, a long time ago, but I mean, ever since this went popular, Warner have come out like straight, I think the day it got released, and said the bell's been rung. That was their tweet, I think, in response to the release of Zack Snyder's cut. Who knows what that means, but I suspect anyone who gets the permission to message that on behalf of Warner probably has something in mind in the background.
If it's a success, HBO Max could fund the next two more stories, couldn't they?
Yeah, and they could fund it for HBO Max. I mean, who knows what the cinematic landscape is? They could say, well, let's have a 10-episode Justice League 2 and 3, hour-long episodes, because the chapters worked really well for me. I love the chapters.
Yeah, no, it did.
I thought the chapters would be really terrible, but the chapters were actual natural breaks. I think they could do an episodic.
Well, if 4 hours, you did need a toilet break, so they were nicely placed, so you could press pause and.
Yeah, but they worked. You could actually press pause, like you say, and go away. I mean, I thought it was just a gimmick, but they were nicely done. So if he can do that, maybe he could do a 10-episode limited run Justice League 2 and 3 shot on HBO Max.
I would watch.
Yeah,
that I would watch. I would tune in to that for an hour a week. Why not? Yeah.
The rumor is that he's going to get Affleck to do a HBO Max short with, I think it's addressing the Robin elephant in the room. Basically,
Robin elephant.
Yeah, well, the death of Robin, which has been teased at in all of this. I think there's so much they could do with this, but I said it at the beginning. At the end of the day, I was done with the DC universe, and I am so much back in. I'll
tell you one thing.
Incredible.
I'm not interested in anything else they've got in the pipeline.
What in terms of DC? Yeah, but
DC.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. But everything else was announced before this. Anything that's related to this, I'm interested in. You're absolutely right about everything else. I don't know where they'll go with everything else. I hope they drop it, and I hope they just focus on
Well, the
this.
Flash movie should be interesting. I'm quite interested in that.
Well, I think they'll
Aquaman
make it.
2, mm.
I reckon they'll make it related to this. I mean, if they do a Flashpoint paradox, it'd be really stupid not to tie it into what's going on. But yeah, I
suppose there's Black Adam with The Rock. That could be quite good.
but it'll be
So-
fun like Shazam, won't it? It won't
Yeah,
really
it's gonna be
be
comic.
related. It'll be a lot of fun as a side movie. DC need to get their big guns in order.
Right, we need to move things along because we did promise that we're only going to be an hour this evening. So before we move on,
Yeah, but no one believed that, Phil.
just a quick listener, just like a listener poll. So if you are watching us live at the minute on YouTube, something for you to get involved with, and we'll come back to it, is best and worst director's cuts. So obviously, give us your ideas, what your thoughts are in the chat window. We'll come back to them before we finish tonight. So I think we're almost wrapping up on our thoughts on this. I don't think we've really missed out anything unless anybody wants to jump in at this moment in time with anything that I haven't picked up on.
I do just want to bring to attention my background, which was the part of the Justice League, which I thought was the most hilarious, which was every half an hour we had to watch Steppenwolf's professional review with his line manager in a video conference. Every time that came up, I thought, why am I watching this? Why do I have to watch him get chewed out by his boss every 2 seconds? Like
With Thanos Light.
Yes. Well, do you know what? We haven't got time for the conversation here, but Thanos is actually a riff on Darkseid. Darkseid came first.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
he
So
did.
that's a point of contention amongst comic book fans.
And sadly, we don't have time to get into that.
No, you're right. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Is anybody else going to mention the pretty ropey CGI in places?
Cyborg particularly.
I'm surprised nobody's actually said it so far.
I don't know. I mean, well, I've got to ask: are we watching it in a different speed? Steve, do you know the answer to this one?
Oh, sorry. Yes, absolutely. I was going to mention this.
That's a big
Obviously,
thing.
on Sky, it's
PAL
being shown
speed.
at 25p.
Yeah.
So it's 10% short, which is why it's 3 hours 52 minutes and not 4 hours and 3 minutes.
Yeah. So I was talking to Tom about this because he was saying some of the action looked a bit clunky.
I thought it looked really like wire work.
Yeah,
Like it looked
so-
really obviously wire work.
Blade 2-ish.
Yeah.
A bit too fast. Now I watched the preview screener from Warner, which was the full 4-hour version without because on HBO Max it's at
24 frames a
24, and it didn't look clunky or super CG. So I have to say, when I got a lot of feedback on the review thread about the CG really standing out and some of the stuff looking, a bit.
I don't think it was just that. I mean, obviously that did have an effect, certainly with motion and so on. But there were some pretty ropey effects in there, and stuff that had carried over from the original cut as well. But there was some bits with the horses, certainly where Steppenwolf is chasing them on horseback, where some of the CG is not great there. And so every now and again there was just the odd bit that kind of take you out. I don't think it was because it was running at 25 frames a second. It's I don't think that didn't really impact too much. I think more of it was actually pretty ropey CG, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's the case as well, but I definitely noticed on my rewatch, because you only have access to the screener for a certain amount of time. On my rewatch, I found it a bit clunky on Now TV. So I have to say, I can't wait to get this on 4K to see if I can undo that, because I didn't. I didn't like
4K DI. So I think we'll get more out of the effects when it's shown.
Hopefully.
Meant to be seen.
Now TV's never forgiving for effects anyway. Everything's pretty bad.
It's 4K on Sky Q though.
Yeah, I still don't trust Sky.
Yeah, that involves giving money to Sky though, Phil. Yeah.
Well, I think it's an important point to make, because I've noticed it's been mentioned a couple of times in the chat. Is how do people actually get to watch this? It's basically Sky subscription or Now TV.
If you've got Now TV, you can do the 1 week free trial, which is what I did, and I just cancelled it about
exactly what I did
an hour ago. So yeah,
you can, and if you're canny, there is a way to get an HBO Max subscription. when you are outside of the US, but it's a bit of a long-winded process.
It's quite a complicated process.
It really
depending
is.
on what device you're using.
Yeah, but
It's very complicated if you're using Apple.
yeah, if you don't want to be signing up to Sky, then that's another possibility for finding it in 4K. But yeah, it's a hassle.
Yeah.
Or we wait for the disc, as we'll all be waiting for the disc.
It should only be a couple of months.
Yeah. I think
May.
Batman versus Superman's May, and I think this is. I suspect they'll hit it at the same time, Steve, like you say. May,
I thought
June.
Batman vs Superman was now, isn't it? Soon?
No, I thought it's May. Oh, you're gonna make me look it up, but I thought it was at late April, May. In fact, May 25th. I heard, because I knew it missed my.
Wouldn't it have made more sense to release it before this? It's an anticipation
Yes,
thing.
but you know what? I don't know whether anyone realised. Oh, 26th of April I've got down here, Batman vs
Okay.
Superman IMAX. So it is in time for my birthday.
So so probably May is a good bet for. I had
For
read
this.
somewhere it might be a 2-disc set, so they can spread it over 2 discs and max out the
Oh,
bit rate.
Yeah.
They've got the chapters.
Well, if they're going to go to the length of doing that, then it makes sense to split it over 2 discs, doesn't it?
It's what they did for the Lord of the Rings 4Ks.
Yeah.
Those are still split.
Yeah, and if you're like me and Stephen, you're used to Laserdisc where you have to get up to change the disc over, then it's no hardship whatsoever. Right, so wrapping up on tonight's podcast, then obviously this has been a director's cut version of Justice League, and there've been some pretty successful director's cuts. This has certainly been successful. I think we've all agreed that it's a far better movie, and like I say, from a 2 to a 6.5, 7 for me, that's tells me that. And I sat for 4 hours and watched a superhero movie. My God, must have been all right. So director's cuts, there's been many, some really good, some really, really bad, and the ones that spring to mind for me straight away, Ridley Scott is somebody who springs to mind
lots of
straight
them.
away. There are a lot of director's cuts when it comes to Ridley. He seems to lose control of the edit, or certainly did in his early career. Seemed to lose control of the famous one was Blade Runner. He didn't get any hands on with that whatsoever. And I've got to say with Blade Runner, I like his final cut, but I also like the theatrical cut with the narration. I mean, I know people hate the narration, but that's the way it was released. And that's how I originally saw the film. And there've been a number of versions now. I think there's been 6 official cuts of that film.
5 different versions.
5 different versions.
I'm with you, Phil. I a part of me appreciates that the final cut is probably the better movie, but I'll always remember the kind of film noir-y narration of the original version, and really annoyingly, I prefer it. Even though I think technically I can understand why the final cut is a better movie, I prefer the narrated one. But at least Ridley Scott does it right. I mean, he did Kingdom of Heaven, didn't he?
I was just going to mention
the vastly superior film.
That's I mean, no one's done it on the scale of Zack Snyder, but I mean that is a vast improvement, because the Kingdom of Heaven theatrical cut is abysmal.
Yeah,
and the director's cut is a good Ridley Scott movie.
He has a bad habit of fiddling around with films. Like his director's cut of, not director's cut, his extended cut of Alien is worse.
Famously.
I guess Aliens, the director's cut of Aliens is a superior film, I think.
Yeah.
The longer cut.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I would have to say that the longer version of Apocalypse Now, not so much.
I'm with you on that, Steve.
Less is more,
100%.
definitely.
I think I'm coming around to that as well. Alien 3 work print though.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a different
Head and
film.
Shoulders,
Yeah.
different film, completely new middle act, very different dynamic to, they actually, well, spoiler, they actually capture the alien, don't they? So
and then let it out.
Yeah, but I mean that's vastly different from what you get to see.
Yeah.
Famously huge flop, but massively underappreciated in its restored edition is Heaven's Gate. Which was a fiasco at the time it was released, but it's actually an exceptionally good film in its restored edition. So for me, that's up there.
It's back in those days of directors though who were ridiculous.
But that was the last time a director was allowed to do that.
He built the set, didn't he?
And
he
then moved it.
He went,
yeah,
but he didn't move it. He destroyed it.
Yeah, and
made them rebuild it like
Yeah.
6 inches to the left. It was, it was.
Oh, The Abyss. The Abyss is definitely better in the longer cut.
Yeah, I like the
Makes
longer
a lot more
cut of it.
sense.
Yeah, I like that. It goes crazy, but I like it. I like Waterworld in its crazy 3-hour version. I find it more epic.
I've never forced myself to sit and watch that bit.
It's got a lot more
I
to
might
it
one day.
in the 3-hour Arrow cut. I mean, it's still rough around the edges, but it feels epic in scale, which I think that you lose in the other one.
Simon, you got any?
Well, I mean, I've got a fairly big list. We're doing better than before we go to worse than, yes?
Well, you can.
So we think well, or in our opinion, what we think was a better director's cut or an extended edition.
Sure.
Yeah, because there are differences between the two.
5 minutes, Simon.
5 minutes. You never give me enough time, do you? Okay. Brazil.
Yep.
Now we know the story of Brazil.
Hang on, that's the director's cut is the only real version that anyone's ever seen.
No. It was originally released by the studio, wasn't it? That's happy ending thing.
That's not what happened, Simon. They were going to do that, and then Terry Gilliam took out an advert in the papers and basically
he kept going on and on about it. When you're going to release the proper version?
To release his version, which also got awarded loads of stuff, awards, and they caved in and released his version, which then bombed.
So you mentioned Aliens, Terminator 2.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's only like a tweak, isn't it? I think you could go with either one of those films. It doesn't change it fundamentally, does it?
No. But it explains that middle section of when they're taking the chip out of his head. It explains his behaviour towards the end. Yeah.
I prefer sorry to jump on. Just you've reminded me, Simon, is the director's cut of Leon. For the same reason, they explain things that aren't in the theatrical version. I know lots of people have a problem with the content, but I actually think the theatrical version's silence on those topics is a lot worse than the director's cut fully addressing the relationship between this old man and a 13-year-old girl.
Yep.
Anyway, go on. Yes.
Okay. You've got RoboCop.
Oh, more violence.
More violence.
Yes.
Gotta love a bit more violence, of course. I Am Legend. With its different cuts, its different ending.
That is different, isn't it?
No. What was the original ending?
Yeah, which way round is it? Which one does he survive?
So the original ending, you've got the
he sacrifices himself, doesn't he? That's the theatrical version.
I think the released version he doesn't, and then the original version he did. I could be wrong. I can't.
Yeah, I can't remember which way round. Basically,
I think he gets them out of the basement, and then he sacrifices himself, doesn't he? That's the theatrical version, I think.
And the other one, he plays Happy Families.
Yeah, I think so.
But they're very different, like Simon says. Yeah.
Very different films. The one that wasn't released was the better film, in my opinion, at least.
It needs to be better. There's a theme developing here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to point out a couple of things that have come up on the chat. And there are a couple of. So there, somebody mentioned Watchmen, which is, relevant to the topic.
Snyder.
Because yes, the director's cut is better than the theatrical, but the ultimate cut is decidedly worse. Like the ultimate cut includes
the animated
Tales of the Black Freighter, which I'm sorry to get nerdy, but in the comic is a commentary on comics, and in the movie is nothing. And it's just long. And the other one that was mentioned, which made me giggle, was 3D Blu-ray Bunker said Alan Smithy's Dune, which
I would kill for David Lynch to actually do a director's cut of Dune.
I know, but he's left it now, hasn't he? He's said so many times.
Someone mentioned The Handmaiden. That is a film that is vastly superior in its director's cut to the theatrical release, partly because of the way it's structured. I watched the director's cut first and then recently rewatched it as the theatrical cut, and I realized that they give away a major plot twist right at the beginning of the theatrical cut, and you think, hang on, this isn't how I remember it. The director's cut is vastly superior. And I think someone else mentioned Dances with Wolves. I think the longer cut of that is also superior.
Yeah, it's the one I'll go to. Any others to quickly go through, Simon?
Doctor Sleep, the fairly recent film.
Good one. Good call. Good
That
call.
is good. I wish they'd done that in 4K. I was gutted when they stuck
Yes,
that
absolutely.
because it's much better. Yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of short ones. Rambo was far more gruesome,
Yeah.
wasn't it? It was only a few
And
minutes.
better developed, I think.
Psycho, only a few seconds here and there. I thought that was a better film. Wild Bunch.
Wait. Psycho's quite a good film to start with.
Yes, yes, it is quite a good film to start with. But those few
It's
extra
not
seconds
bad.
here and there, I thought made it more intense. I just felt it added a bit more gritty to it. I mean, it was only a few seconds, about 30 seconds, a few trims here and there, but suddenly you think, oh wow, that was really quite powerful. Just something as simple as washing the blood off your hands.
Yeah,
Worked for me.
Yeah. Okay, any from you, Tom?
None that haven't already been mentioned. I mean, I'll go on about till the cows come home, but the extended editions of the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, of course, yeah. How can we forget those?
I mean, yeah, the particularly the additions to the Fellowship of the Ring, but also
Two Towers is the best one.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
In terms of extension.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The first and the third film, you can live without it. I think the second one really benefits.
I think the third movie where we get addressed the death of Saruman is a vital piece of the story that was missing in and also by extension the Hobbit movies, which are by and large drivel. The second movie in its extended version is actually a pretty good film. I would go so far as to say it's a film that hews most closely to the source material and is all the better for it.
I think
that's the second one.
I think the fan edits that reduce those three films to one is actually
film
better.
Can't argue with that.
I also like the director's cut of Payback. I know it's not as epic as Lord of the Rings or but it's quite a fun film and very different from the original kind of Hollywood cut, which had Chris Christopherson and lots more jokes. And the original Brian Helgeland version was a lot darker and more point blankish in tone and filtered completely differently. And the ending is a completely different ending at a subway station with a shootout that ends very bleakly for everybody. And I think it suits the material a lot more.
I'll mention one more just because in the thread here, 3D Blu-ray Bunker mentions it. Once Upon a Time in America. Yeah. That was last year, I think, or maybe the year before. Again, only a few more scenes added to it. I'm not sure. The central stuff didn't add anything, but I think the ending was quite good. The re-edit of the ending and the adding a few scenes there. I think that made a difference to me.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, well, I mean, it seems that we quite like director's cuts. It's certainly with the ones that we mentioned here. So, is there something to be said about leaving movies alone?
Oh yeah.
Do we?
Shall I give you 2 words?
Star Wars.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're going with that.
Where a film has been changed and it's turned out better.
What was that, Steve? Sorry?
Is there a film we can think of where it's been cut down or changed from its original version but turns out better? Has it been improved by studio interference?
Oh, I see. A non-director's version that is better.
Galaxy Quest, but that wasn't really cut. The theatrical version was messed around with by the studio, but everything they did to it meant
they took out the swearing, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Although it is funny when you lip read what she's actually saying.
Yeah.
It's
I think that actually makes it funnier because it's dubbed, but the lips don't match what. Yeah. I know what you're saying about Star Wars. I think I think you're right there, Simon. I mean, a lot of the stuff that gets added in that were added in the special editions in '97. I mean, you watch them now and it's just they look terrible. I mean, the technology just wasn't. It was cutting edge at the time, but it looks really ropey now. It looks really bad. Whereas the 77 effects still stand up because it was sleight of hand, because it was, they had to work to the resources that they had. And especially the speeder scene when they go into Mos Eisley. That's completely ruined. I mean, the way it was in the original 77-inch, 77 version, it was.
It's not just that the effects are bad; it's that the tone of it is so wrong.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't suit
childish.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Any others then?
Oh yes.
I don't like Michael Mann's tinkering, I have to say. I love his films. I think he is an absolute masterpiece. But I've got so many versions of his films, and they're almost all at the same level, but with like the odd line removed. I mean, Heat has got 3 versions. Manhunter's got 4 versions. Thief has got 2 versions. Last of the Mohicans has got 3 versions. I mean, no, and they're all the same. Like, as in, Ali's got 2 versions, and some of the best lines are in both of the movies. So he really frustrates me, and I don't really like directors who also, like Friedkin, who come in and just change the color.
Yeah,
That bugs me as well. It's like, that's not a director's cut there. I'm just going to make it blue. So those are 2 thumbs down from me in terms of directors tinkering. But the thing, Phil, that I think about all of this, the preface to all of it, is the famous saying is that directors never finish movies; they just have them taken away from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's
absolutely. Which again, coming back to Ridley Scott, that's always happened to him. Always happened to him. It was taken away from him.
Coppola as well is guilty of messing too much with his movies. You already said, like, Apocalypse Now, which is inferior in its extended edition, and also the unnecessary tinkering with the Godfather coda, previously the Godfather 3, which is he doesn't want to let go, but he doesn't know how to make it better. Basically,
you need to cast Robert Duvall to make Godfather Part 3 better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you what I am happy with is that Spielberg was going down the road following his friend Lucas, making changes, especially with the ET. You remember the changes they made to ET with the change of the guns for
the
radios,
walkie-talkies,
the walkie-talkies, and all the rest of it. I'm so glad he went back and changed all that and never tinkered with anything ever again.
Tinkering with Close Encounters. Backwards and forwards. I think he finally nailed it with the final cut.
I think so. But since then, and since that ET, he's never done it again. So, I think, unless I'm wrong, we've come to the end of our little discussion this evening on the Movies Podcast.
I do have a quick question.
Go on then.
So now that we've got Zack Snyder's Justice League, should we start a campaign for release the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad?
No.
Shut up.
And on that bombshell,
never has there been a more Ayer movie than the Suicide Squad. I don't want any more of it.
We've had a couple of donations tonight, so I just want to quickly mention those. Marcus Aurelius, he gave us £5 tonight. Thank you very much. Hopefully that's in Roman coins and a hoard, so that should be quite valuable. And Chris Wall, he donated £10 through the super chat. Chris, thank you very much for your support. I really is appreciated. And thanks to everybody who's been listening in live tonight and putting your opinions into the chat window. I'm sorry we didn't come to all of those. I mean, Donnie Darko, that was a good one because that's been changed recently and not so good. So
Oliver Stone had 5 or 6 attempts to get Alexander right.
Oh God, and still didn't.
I think I've got 4 different cuts of that.
He's running out of names for them. The ultimate, the legendary edition, the historically inaccurate edition,
the slightly less Irish version.
The non-Colin Farrell edition is what I'll wait for.
Well, maybe you could get Stu to do the on-time podcast edition. That'd be cool.
We're close.
So thanks again if you have been listening in this evening, taking part in the chat. It really is appreciated. Please do like the video. If you are listening live at the minute, you've enjoyed what you've heard this evening, then that would be appreciated. But my thanks tonight go to Kaz.
Good night.
Tom.
Thanks, everyone.
Simon.
Thanks, everyone.
And Steve.
Cheers.
Don't forget, if you enjoyed the podcast, then please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell, and we'll tell you every time we upload a new video. Plus, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. You can bookmark AVforums.com for latest reviews, news, and videos. Plus, leave us a 5-star rating on whichever service you listen to, the audio-only version, but only if you allow it, and only 5 stars, please. but only if you enjoyed the show. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you on the weekly podcast, which is on Wednesday at 7 o'clock.